Okay, so today we're going to look at UI storyboarding. We're going to look at some of the basics of storyboarding and then take you on to a little bit more to show you how to pass data to and from scenes that you are going to create. So let's first of all open up Xcode and we'll start a new project. We'll have a single view application and we'll call it Story. We need to make sure we check use storyboard, and today we're just going to use automatic reference counting just to make things a little bit easier. Save this on desktop. Okay. You have to excuse me, I'm not very well at the moment, so if I sound a little bit hoarse, that'll be why. So first of all, if we go to the main storyboard, we'll see this is where we will start today's tutorial. So here we can see the first scene. So in storyboarding, a view controller controls an individual scene, which is a single screen of content. And here we've got the entry point into the application. So this will mean that this will be the first screen or scene that the application will load. A couple of points to note about this. We can move this around by simply dragging it, and this will redefine the entry point into the application. We can also use this little checkbox to redefine which scene is the initial view controller, and also it's quite handy because if you should delete a scene, then you lose the entry point, so just knowing that this little checkbox exists can be quite handy. So that's the first little tip. Let's look at pulling on our first view controller that we're going to transition to. Let's create a button. And we're going to drag out a Segue from this button across to the new view by right clicking and dragging this over and dropping when we're there. Now we can see there's three different types of Segues. We can do a custom one, but we're not going to look at them today. We can look at modal or push. So first of all, we'll create a push Segue. So here we can see the Segue's been created. And we'll just add a label to this new scene so we can see this when it pops up. So let's run this first of all. And here we can see the new scene transition on. Let's look at something that could maybe throw somebody off. Let's create a push. So here we are going to press this button and try and push this scene on. Now we'll notice here that no matter how many times we press this button, we won't get a push of the new scene happening. Now why is this? It's because there is no navigation controller. So the best way to achieve this is if we click on the view controller we want to transition from, go to editor, embed in, and click navigation controller. We will see that a new navigation controller is added to the storyboard. Zoom out a little bit here. Added to the storyboard, and there's a relationship created between the navigation controller and the view controller that we're going to Segue from. So let's just run this again. And this time when we hit the button, we get the new scene pushed and we get a back button coming onto the navigation bar. So that's sort of the basics behind storyboarding. I'm going to add in some scaffolding classes. I'll talk you through that in a second, but I'll be back in just a minute once I've added these, and then we can continue on with some more features of storyboarding. Back in a second. Okay, so now we're back. I'm going to show you the files that I've added here and talk you through them a little bit. So this section of the tutorial is going to show you how to do a very simple contact list. So we have our contacts, so a contact class, just a first and second name, very simple, straightforward. We're going to have a table view that displays a list of those contacts, and what we've done is on the onload we've instantiated that list of contacts and added 2 contacts to that list. So let's first of all go into our storyboard and edit what we have to display that list. So let's delete all of these, and we'll put on a UI table view controller. This is going to be contacts table view controller. So now if we run that, hopefully we should see Scott Sherwood and Joe Blocks. Yep, let me do. There we go. So first thing we want to do is we want to be able to see a more detailed view of these contacts. Now at the moment it's not going to show any additional information as we only have 2 fields. So let's pull on a view controller first of all. And this is going to display an individual contact. So let's add a UI label, and we'll add that for first name. Oops, need to zoom in on these. That's another thing, when you're in zoomed out mode, it doesn't seem to want to let you put objects on things, so you have to kind of go into this sort of closer up view for you to be able to add user interface widgets to your particular scene. Let's just pull these out a little bit. Okay, and we'll set this scene to be contact detailed view controller, and we'll hook up both of these labels to first name label and second name label. Actually, let me just go to this class and briefly talk you through it. So very simple again, we've got a contact that we're going to set for the particular detail view controller that we want to look at their details, and 2 outlets that we're going to hook up that we just hooked up there actually. And in here on the view will appear, we update those labels to show the first and second name. Very simple. So what we want to do is we want to transition from an item in the list to the detail view controller by tapping. So we right click again on the table view cell, and we pull over a seg to the new view controller. Now we want to push this, but as we said before, we don't have any navigation controller, so we need to go back to the table view and embed this in a navigation controller. This will mean now that when a table view cell is tapped, our new view controller, detail view controller, will be pushed on. There's one thing I forgot to do here, but I'm going to show you this just so that we can highlight it a little bit. So here we have the list, but you'll notice that there's no arrow to show the detailed view, which is shown here. And when we click this, nothing is happening. We're not getting any seg to the new view. Now this happens because we have used a prototype cell to initialize the seg to the new view controller, but inside our contacts table view class, we are instantiating table views with an identifier of cell. Now we can have any identifier we want in here, and we can set identifiers to different cells or different prototypes. But the one thing we've forgotten to do with this is this prototype cell, its reuse identifier is blank. So when we create one with a reuse identifier of cell, then it won't have the Segue hooked to the new view controller we want. So what we have to do is we have to name this one cell, and that will mean that now when we run it, we'll see we get the detailed view. Oops, don't think I've came out of that box. Let's try that again. And this time we've got them, and when we push them on, we can see we've moved to the new screen. So now we need to pass the data that's going to be displayed. So if we notice, when we're running it there, we seg to the new view, but both labels are blank. Now the reason for this is this new view has no knowledge about what data is represented in this view. So when we tap on this, it doesn't know what to display. So this is where the prepare for Segue method comes in. So in our table view controller, we have to implement prepare for Segue. First of all, we're going to set an identifier on the Segue so we know which Segue that we're calling. So we'll call this detail Segue. And then inside the table view controller, we'll add this just in here. Void prepare for Segue. If let me just check I've got that spelled correctly. Spelling's not the best, so I always like to just copy and paste. It saves me having problems later. And this is us, and we now know that inside this if block that we have got the correct Segue. So we may have multiple Segues in our application coming from this particular view, and we would just continue checking to see which Segue it was we were looking at. So in this one, we know that the sender is going to be a table view cell. And we want to find out which data object that represents, so we will find out where that is. In relation to our other cells, and we'll pull out the contact that we have stored that cell represents. Okay. Now we want to set the new scene, the contact detailed view controller, with this data. So how do we do that? Well, the Segue itself has a handle to this new view controller that's going to be pushed on. So contact detail controller, and we'll say we want to cast, so we don't get any warnings. Oops. Do Segue. It's called destination view controller. So the destination view controller is the one that's going to be pushed on in our case, in this particular Segue's case, but there may be other transitions. But the new scene that's coming on is always specified in this destination view controller. When you get a handle to it, you can then set data or manipulate it in whatever way you require. So we're going to set its contact to the one that we've just pulled out here. Hopefully now when we run it, we should see both those labels set in our detailed view controller, which we do. And if we go to blogs, we can see him too. So now we're going to look briefly at how do we edit how do we provide the sort of editing feature. So if in our application we want to change Scott Sherwood to Bob Smith, how would we be able to change those names? First of all, we have to go to when the name will be changed in the contact view controller, and it needs to pass the information back to the contacts table view controller to say something's been changed and here's what it is. So what we do is we use Delegation for that. Most people with Objective-C should be quite familiar with Delegation, so let's just get on with that. Let's create a protocol called detailed delegate. Oops, go too fast here. And we'll say contact is a contact updated. We'll pass back a contact just in case it's needed. We want to set a delegate. First, we want to create a delegate for that that implements this protocol. So we want to define the protocol up here so we don't get any compiler issues. Create a private I for her. Delete, and then on the view will disappear. What we will do is we will fire this delegate. There may be better places to do this, and for your application you might want to look at the best way to update everybody else, all the other sort of classes, models that might be listening to these particular updates, but I'm just going to do it when we push back to the table view controller here. So we'll say delegate. And we're just going to pass back the contact. It's going to be changed. What we're going to do is I'm going to change both the first name label and the second name label to be text fields. Oops. So that we are able to edit these values. And on the way out I'm going to update the contact that we have a reference to with the latest values in these text fields so that it gets updated. let's go back to our storyboard quickly and we'll remove both these labels. Add 2 new text fields. And hook these up. Let's just run this quickly to make sure. Just run this quickly to make sure I've hooked everything up correctly. Yep. Now, what we need to do is we need to implement this delegate so that the contacts list knows that there's been a contact, the contact has been updated. So, and let's do this code. Yeah, that's why it did not complete. Let's say that we're going to implement this particular delegate and put it in here. And all we actually have to do in this particular case is reload the data, because the contact that we are passing in here is a reference to one of the contacts in our list. So when we update that inside our detail view controller, it will update the reference inside the list that we've got. So all we need to do is tell the table view controller, now one of these contacts in your list has been updated, so just reload. But in some other instances, you may actually want to do something with that particular contact, or there may not be a handle to it stored, so you will need to sort of deal with it there. And the last thing we have to do is we have to say the detail view controller delegate is going to be this contacts table view. That means it will receive the contact updated method call and then force the reload of data. So let's just run this and hopefully that should be us sorted. So we'll call this Bob Smith. If we go back, we have Bob Smith. So that's all for this basic UI storyboarding tutorial. I hope it helps.